Across 8 separate decades, 3 generations of the Robinson family encountered something unnatural lurking close to Cross Village, Michigan. Something with significance to years ending with a 7. There have been many reports of a half-human, half-canine creature with a scream-like howl roaming in Michigan's Lower Peninsula. However, what happened to the Robinson family was different, for one reason. It seemed personal. In 2009, Carter, Noah, and Ellen Robinson shared their horrific encounters. Encounters recorded by Ellen and stored on several separate devices for future bloodlines to find if they chose to. These are those accounts, told in the order they occurred. 1937, Carter Ambrose Robinson. I was 10 years old when I learned that there were horrors in this world, ones that we cannot begin to understand. I lived in Cross Village with my ma and twin siblings, Bobby and Nancy. It was just us 4, and had been that way since Pa left. I say left. It was Ma who made him leave. He was a good man, but good men can't always resist their demons. In Pa's case, it was drink. When he lived with us, it was normal for him to spend all of his earnings in the pub and come back barely able to stand straight, the smell of liquor festering on his skin and clothes. I don't blame Ma for packing his bag and making him leave. He only had one place he could go and stay. His hunting cabin bordering the Wilderness State Park. I idolized my Pa, and I secretly blamed Ma for giving up on him. Life was difficult without Pa there. Ma was now always stressed, and as such, if I wasn't at school, I was doing chores or minding the twins, never with any gratitude in return. I eagerly waited the 3rd Friday of each month as I got to see Pa. He was meant to meet me by the tunnel of trees, a dense canopy of trees curved by fire, so he could walk with me to his cabin. Sometimes he showed up, the faint smell of liquor on his clothes. Other times, he failed to show at all. Ma made it clear, if he wasn't there, I must come straight home and not venture through the trees by myself. Ma was in a foul mood, and the twins were acting up. I didn't want to go home. I wanted to see my Pa. As time ticked by and the sky began to darken, I knew he wasn't going to show. I stared from the path back home and the route through the trees, and I made my choice. A choice that, unbeknown to my young mind, would forever change my view on the world. I arrived at his cabin around dusk and instantly knew something was wrong. I could sense it. Silence surrounded me as I took a deep breath and I knocked on the cabin door. The silence vanished and different sounds replaced it. It sounded like hammering, sounds coming from within the cabin, and that seemed to make the wooden walls shake. I knocked on the door, shouting, "Pa, it's me. It's Carter." I don't know if he heard me over the noise, so I tried the door. It was locked, but I could tell that something was blocking it from the other side. There was only one window on the cabin, around the side. I walked over to it, my heart pounding at the thought of being stuck out there alone all night. I regretted my decision to come there, and I feared the wrath that I would receive from Ma as a result. The hammering began again, and as I looked at the window, I realized what it was. There were planks of wood covering it from the inside. One moved enough for my Pa's bloodshot eyes to peek through and see me. The next thing I remember was a plank being pulled to the side, the window being creaked open, and my father grabbing me and pulling me through the small hole. As soon as I was inside the cabin, he started hammering the plank over the gap I'd just come through, trapping us in the dark. I could smell the damp wood and the days-old liquor. When the hammering stopped, I heard Pa pace across the cabin and cock his rifle. I was trembling as he sat next to me on the hard floor and slurred in my ear, "Boy, you shouldn't have come here. Beware the year of 7s. Ha, it wants me dead. Your grandpa saw to that. He made that thing mad." Then he lit a match, illuminating the horror of his ransacked cabin and his bloodied, scratched body. He was a patchwork of gashes and wounds. He reached for a bottle, and as the match went out, I heard him glug back the liquid. He kept on whispering, "It's coming. It's coming. It's coming." I was terrified. I just sat there trembling, not knowing what else to do. I heard the howl first, coming from outside. It wasn't a coyote or a wolf. It was almost human, but not quite. This made my paw speed up his whispered words. He crawled in front of me, blocking me in his shadow, and I stayed there curled up and afraid, the howling screams tarnishing the night. The door burst open in one swoop, the wooden planks offering no sanctuary. I couldn't see it, not behind my paw, but I could hear its presence. Deep breaths, heavy footsteps, a looming shadow carried in the dusk light that almost reached my toes. Sevens. It's in the sevens. Die, omen of death, Pa muttered, and then he fired his rifle. I heard the howl-like scream, one that seemed to make the whole cabin tremble, and then I heard Pa's scream as it grabbed him and pulled him across the wooden floor. And that's when I saw it. Neither fully human nor wolf. It towered high on two legs, its dark fur making it seem like a shadow. I felt its amber eyes boring into me. I thought it was going to take me, but it didn't. It slung my bleeding, limp, lifeless paw over its shoulder and took him instead. I stayed in that exact spot all night, curled up in a shivering ball. It was Ma's brother Jack who found me late the next day. When I hadn't returned home, Ma had sent him to collect me. And what he found was a child full of fear and the bloody trail left by my paw. He torched the cabin, saying that it would be better that way. He used Pa's liquor to do it. We watched it burn to the ground, taking my pa's memory with it. Then he carried me home, and in the haze of the lingering burning smell and vivid greens, I repeated under my breath, sevens. It's in the sevens, even though back then, I had no idea what this could mean. 1967, Noah Ambrose Robinson. For most of my life, it was just me and Mom. She never really dated. She didn't say as much, but I knew my dad had put her off relationships. She said he was a kind man, and despite his troubles, wasn't able to commit to a family. And I knew it was because he never got over losing his father, my grandfather, at such a young age. I just didn't understand why he never tried to make an effort with me. On the few times I did see my dad, awkward silence seemed to surround us, and I ended up just wanting to be anywhere else. I still traveled from Ohio to Cross Village once a year, usually in the summer, to see my dad's side of the family and to stay with my Aunt Nancy. I don't really know if I liked going there. My cousins weren't really that nice to me. Yet, every year I still went there without fail. I don't know. Maybe I just didn't want to feel exiled due to my dad. And that summer, I had just turned 15 and felt like a misfit. Girls didn't like me, and I wasn't even sure I liked girls. Uncle Bobby's son, Milton, was arrogant and at times cruel. I latched on to him like wisteria, not because I liked him, but because I found myself drawn to his friend, Ray. Aunt Nancy's daughter, Shelly Ann, hung out with us for what I presumed were the same reasons. We were the strange group of four, following Milton's orders as half of us pined for Ray. None of us ever said no to him, which is why we ended up on the border of Wilderness State Park, on the remains where Milton claimed our great-grandpa's cabin used to be. He insisted we camp there, and when Shelly Ann seemed anxious about this, he called her out on being childish and a wuss. As she was small for her age, she took this personally and went along with whatever he said after that. Milton ordered us around, making us collect branches for a fire. It was exhausting, and I was glad when night started to fall and I could stay still and watch the flames crackle. Ray sat next to me and offered me a lucky strike. I took it from him, blushing as my fingers accidentally brushed against his, but he didn't pull away. I felt a spark, one I'm certain Ray shared too. Milton saw this. I could see the glee reflected in his fire-glinted eyes. My heart collapsed at that moment. He knew my secret, and this meant he owned me. I think I would have done anything to stop him from telling anyone. It turns out, I didn't have to. I needed to get away from Milton, so I said I needed to pee, just so I could take the only flashlight we had and walk through the trees. I heard footsteps behind me and turned around, hoping that it was Ray, and dreading that it was Milton. It was neither. Instead, It was Shelly Ann, eyes full of rage as she screamed at me that I ruined everything and then shoved me into a tree trunk. I think she was talking about Ray, but at the time I didn't know what she meant by it, and in the end, it didn't matter. I felt something tickling at my neck and jerked away. Shelly Ann saw it too, the tufts of black fur caught in the branch. I ran my fingers over it, wondering what animal it could be from and how it got tangled up so high. And that's when the screams came through the trees. A howl, almost human-like, and shrieks, one's notably human, one's in the midst of pain. I grabbed Shelly Ann's arm and pulled her through the trees. The area around us fell silent, too silent, silent enough that we could hear our hearts thudding over the sound of our running footsteps. We ran into camp, or what was left of it, the fire now smoldering flickers and ash, and Ray was curled up, gripping his legs with one arm. In his other hand, he gripped a trembling knife, Milton's for slicing up branches. Splattered around the fire were blood and gut remains, the smell fresh and rancid all at once. Through the massacre, I tried to work it out. Ray had no bloodstains on him at all. Milton was gone. I tried to pry the knife from Ray's hand, but he wouldn't let me take it. He wouldn't tell us what happened either, but in our hearts, we already knew. No teenage boy with a blunt blade could cause this much destruction. It was something else, something not human. We stumbled back that night. Shelly Ann and I had to walk Ray back, his arms slung around us, his remaining strength being used on gripping the knife he refused to let go of. I carried him on his knife-holding side just in case, but I knew he was no threat. I still remember Uncle Bobby's wail when I told him about what happened. He disappeared into the trees for days, but found only blood, guts, and shreds of Milton's check shirt. Authorities said a bear must have done it. We all knew it wasn't a bear. The night after it happened, my dad rang me. The conversation was short, but I still carry his words with me. Sevens. It always comes in the year of sevens. My pa said his father did something to start this. I don't know what. Noah, stay away from there. I rarely saw my aunt, uncle, cousins, Ray, or my dad again after that. I know Shelly Ann and Ray went on to marry and have a baby, Ellen. Maybe it was easier for them this way. I went back to Ohio and tried to bury my past. Even now, all of these years later, I still wonder if it was my disliking towards Milton, or the way I was, that caused the creature to come and unleash its savagery. 2007, Ellen Rose Robinson. I knew my parents met through grief, but I didn't know any more than that. Growing up, my Uncle Milton's name was no more than a whispered word that caused my mom to tear up and my dad to fall silent. I didn't question this, just as I didn't question their lack of closeness, of touch with each other. Back then, their notion of love was all I knew, so I just thought that was how love was. It was only as I grew older that I saw the cracks in their foundations. It was a secret we all knew, but knew better than to mention. I used to visit my great-uncle Bobby. I think I was the only one who did. He still lived in Cross Village, in the house he grew up in, haunted by the ghosts of his own regrets. I knew he would never leave that place. Something was keeping him stuck there, an invisible thread formed of grief and mystery. Mom didn't stop me from visiting him. She just made me swear that I would stay in Cross Village and never venture beyond the tunnel of trees. A promise I never intended to break. Even though age was not on Uncle Bobby's side, he remained nimble-bodied, refusing to let the notes of time disable his body as they did his mind. I was used to his eccentric ways, his rambling about sevens, and his frenzied thoughts stuck in the past. When I showed up at his house on a rainy May evening, he was worse than normal. Something had riled him up, but he couldn't explain to me what it was. He laid a shotgun on the table and searched the cupboards, throwing the contents of them onto the floor until he found a box of bullets. I tried to calm him down. I offered to make him some food, but he slid past me as though he hadn't seen me at all. As he loaded the shotgun and marched out of the house and into the rain, I knew I couldn't let him go off by himself. I ran into the rain after him. I was weed-like in height and build, and even though he was far older than me, he was strong-willed. I couldn't overpower him, and so I decided to focus on keeping up with him. I didn't register where we were until I saw constant green around me. That's when I knew I had broken my promise to my mom. He was persistent in his walking, the shotgun swinging by his side as he brushed past the trees, and when we finally stopped, the sky was the silent shade of gloom it turned before darkness fell. He sat on a rock in a clearing, and not knowing what else to do, I sat next to him. He balanced his gun between his knees and pointed over at a spot of overgrowth and brambles, croaking out, "My pa's cabin was over there. I was just 4 when he died. I never went in that cabin. I was too small to come out here. Not like Carter." I patted his shoulder, not knowing what else to do. "Milton, my son, died here. I found bits of him, but never a body. The dogman has it. It has a part of us all. It's been plaguing our family for decades, a curse in 7s. Carter thinks it was because of my grandpa, and something he did, but I don't know what. All I know about my grandpa was that he lived for the hunt." I didn't say anything. What words were there to say? The night trickled on in a downpour of darkness. We must have sat there for hours, both soaked through to our skin. I knew I couldn't leave him, and that I had to give him time, but I found myself daydreaming about warmth and normality. Through these thoughts, I heard rustling through the trees. I looked up and saw an outline of something unfamiliar, dog-like as it was human, but too menacing to be either. Its eyes were looking at me, glowing amber eyes. Although terrified through my panic, I went to nudge Uncle Bobby to warn him, but only touched air. He wasn't there. I don't know when he left. I must have been too cold and terrified to notice. The creature continued to stare at me, and I found myself gripping my fingers into the wet bark behind me as I stared back, too afraid to break eye contact. I thought I was going to die, yet all I could think about was how mad Mom would be that I broke my promise. The gunshots echoed through the trees, 3 in a row. The creature backed up, and then it broke eye contact and fled through the trees. Shortly afterward, I heard howls and screams fill the air, animal and human. I ran, sodden footsteps, as I called my uncle's name. I wanted to find him, but I knew I wouldn't. I knew it was too late. I reached the road, collapsing beneath the tunnel of trees, until headlamps flickered to a stop in front of me. A search party looked for Uncle Bobby, but they never found a trace of him. Maybe the rain washed it all away. I don't know, but I think he died out there, in one way or another. I think he went there to die. I still think about those glowing amber eyes, and when I do, I blink to try and forget about them. None of my family live in Michigan anymore, and I don't think any of us will ever go back. Not unless we feel compelled to go there. I want to warn them not to go. This pain has to end with us, else I fear it will never stop. For centuries, dogman sightings have been reported throughout Michigan. This towering creature walks on 2 legs, has the head of a dog-like being, the body of a human, amber eyes, a howl that resembles a human scream, and it most commonly appears in years ending in a 7. One of the dogman sightings was not by the Robinson family, but in Wexford County, 1887, when 2 lumberjacks reported seeing the dog-human hybrid. The Robinson family experienced great loss that was attributed by the law to excessive drinking, a bear attack, and a cognitive degenerative condition such as dementia. There are no surviving records on Carter and Bobby's great-grandpa, as the archive where these were stored went up in flames over a century ago. Even his name is untraceable, as no one alive is left to recall it. If the dogmen chose to target the Robinson family, then to this day, it remains unclear as to why. The Michigan woods holds many secrets, but the Robinson family's burden feels different, doesn't it? Personal, targeted. If you've heard whispers of similar mysteries, whether from the Great Lakes, or your hometown, or the stories they used to tell you when you were young, let us know below, and subscribe to help us keep these accounts alive. There are more families out there, more mysteries that refuse to stay buried. Please share for more scary horror stories, and we'll see you in the next video.